Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Earth and Body Ecosystems podcast.
Join us as we bridge the gap between the body and the earth we live in together.
Okay, when as you can hear, that's Joyce. If you're seeing this on video, she's still without electricity and internet in Louisiana, but she's a trooper and she has joined us by telephone. So anyway, if you wanted to book a reading with me, want a herbal consultation, you can email me at colorcauldron@yahoo.com. Joyce?
If you are interested in EMF protection, I have various shungite items, necklaces, bracelets. I also do organic skincare. So just visit majesticterra.com and go to shop.
Wonderful. And our guest today is Juliann Victoria. And she's going to tell us about herself because this woman has an amazing bio. And so take it away, Julie.
Hi, hello, I'm Juliann Victoria. You can call me Julie. My bio, we were joking about it beforehand. I've done lots of things. I've been a massage therapist, structural integration therapist, Reiki practitioner. Currently, I usually say I'm a spiritual counselor. I also do distance Reiki and shamanic healing. I'm also a deck creator, tarot and oracle deck creator, and a writer. And writing is my number one focus right now, while I do little bits of all those other things at the same time. I think that's a good summary.
That's a good summary.
And my website, if you're interested, is juliannvictoria.com. The same for my YouTube channel. Through the Peacock's Eyes is my blog and my Instagram.
Thank you for that. So we're both interested in what you're writing about right now. So could you elaborate on that for us?
So my main focus right now is writing my book on schizophrenia. The working title, it'll probably be the title, but sometimes those things change as you finish a project, is In My Sister's Mind. And my sister, it's kind of about my sister who is a homeless schizophrenic. It's more like she's the subject matter of my exploration into schizophrenia, mental health in a broader context, but specifically schizophrenia and all the things that can influence it. I say causes because there isn't like a set cause, like there's not a test you take and that caused it, but looking at all the potential causes of schizophrenia from genetics, brain chemistry, environmental factors, to things like spiritual crisis or spiritual emergency, and even sort of what would be considered more the woo-woo things like alien abduction or demon possession. So looking at all those things that can potentially be the causes or influences that impact someone suffering from schizophrenia and potentially other mental health disorders. Yeah.
Can you talk a little?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm interested in the environmental factors that might be contributing to schizophrenia.
So a lot of that is like upbringing, parental upbringing, the mental, emotional, psychological dynamics within a home. Was there trauma? There can be like environmental things like, like poisons in the environment. But there's little evidence of that. It would be something more that impacts a mental, emotional, or psychological or biological thing that's going on. It's a tricky thing because again, there isn't a test like to diagnose schizophrenia. It's based on behaviors and history of behaviors, and most people think of hallucinations and delusions, which is a huge part of it. And then those other things that can impact it. And other environmental things would also be like drug use. Like many people with mental health challenges or disorders often go into self-medication in some way, and that usually exacerbates the problem, though in a temporary relief with a long-term exacerbation. So it's really tricky and complicated. And it's hard to pin it down to one thing. From the research I've done, for most people who suffer from schizophrenia, or you can call them schizophrenics, that's another thing I did a lot of research into. Like, they prefer to be called someone with schizophrenia or schizophrenic, but the term schizophrenic means someone with schizophrenia. So I'm always like, how do I refer to this? And then in the book, because it's my understanding of it, and with my sister as the subject matter, a lot of it also includes my psychic interpretation, because I know her, at least I think, I know her probably better than anybody else. She's 2 years older than me. I've known her my entire life. We were very close as small children. We were best friends as kids. And I could see as she developed her, there are more delusions, though she has some hallucinations, but not a whole, she doesn't have a whole lot of visual hallucinations. And she doesn't have the multiple voices in her head that is most people think of with schizophrenia, but she has these grand delusions. And I can see how some of them grew from our childhood imaginary play. I think there's other factors. I think there's some past life stuff coming in here. Because what fascinates me is that in one sense, my sister and I are very similar. I believe she is also psychic. Witchy stuff was normal for us as kids. And part of what made me realize the book is more about me than really her, and she's the subject matter, is because I would question, okay, we have somewhat similar experiences. I see it as something I pick up psychically. She internalizes it and it's reality, like this physical reality. Like, so what is the mechanism that makes me able to say, oh, I saw a ghost or something like that, right? Or I picked up a past life experience or something, and realize that that's a past life experience. That's not right now. And it's not meshed and intertwined into the present moment, where she is unable to differentiate, integrate, or categorize those things. And it all becomes this grand delusion, right? So it's fascinating. It takes a lot of like psychic exploration to write this. So it's very slow writing, and I consider myself a slow writer to begin with, maybe because I'm like too perfectionist and I'm like, that sentence is not good. Or sometimes you spend like weeks researching what turns out to be one paragraph, you know? So it takes a while, but yeah, it's a lot of self-exploration in the process, and it's trying to get in my sister's mind, basically. Yeah.
That is so interesting, because I had a light bulb go off in my because there's somebody in my life that's rather close to me, that when they were young, we played a game. It was hide and seek, right? It was a childhood game, and we pretended that we couldn't see him, that he had disappeared, but we could see him the whole time.
Right.
But in his mind, till this day, he believes that he literally disappeared.
Wow.
So that what you said about your sister not being able to separate an experience,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense, because he's a he. So he and this is what happens is he pulls in these experiences, and I even think sometimes he reads something and he internalizes it, and it's not something outside of him, but it's something within him. So
Yeah.
that yeah,
happens. Like it's sort of like a cross between a hallucination and a delusion almost, that's internalized. Because like my sister, like I would say, and this is pretty typical, that in high school, so teenage years, it was, we kind of, I could tell like something wasn't quite right? Something, you know, was she just a moody teenager or what? But she would watch soap operas. And I remember saying, so remember, we were very close growing up, and we're both psychic. It's this kind of a psychic witchy family, right? So we could just think each other's thoughts, or we would mumble words and we'd know what each other was saying, right? So I could pick up stuff from her very well. And she would watch soap operas, and I would be like, she thinks this is real. Like she would get so engrossed in the stories, and then how she kind of would talk about it after, I just felt like she thinks that's a reality. And
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Could you tell us, can you tell us more?
Go ahead.
Can you
sorry.
tell us more about your childhood and the environment that you grew up in?
Yes. So I grew up in a Victorian in San Francisco, California.
Nice.
I did go to Catholic school, but I wouldn't say we were Catholic at home, right? Still like sort of religion, spirituality was part of life, but it wasn't like a strict religious upbringing at all. Even though in my Catholic school, so kindergarten through 8th grade, I was considered the holy kid. Very, and that's the right term, the holy kid, not religious kid, the holy kid. But within
I like that better.
Yeah, within our family, like psychic, mystical, metaphysical, you could say witchy, but we didn't use that term. Those type of things were normal. We talked about psychic experiences. We knew the house there were spirits or entities in the house. My grandmother loved to sit down and talk about her dreams. You know, if my dad like hurt himself, like my mom would hold his hand and he would say she could take the pain out of him. So that's a shamanic thing, to actually extract the pain out, feel it yourself. And you know, there were a few times where like my dad would like try these psychic tests with us. We had psychics come to the house. The kids weren't there, but it was more than once where they'd come to like feel the house or something. We had the priest come and bless the house. I don't know all the experiences my parents had, but I know my dad is scared of something. He still lives in this house. So the whole metaphysical world was normal for us. It wasn't shunned or shamed, discouraged in any way. It was actually more like, oh, this is interesting. You know, it wasn't something like we talk about every day, but it wasn't something pushed aside. So we're it was open to it, basically. Yeah. So I guess supported for who I am. I didn't have to overcome that. That's
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, a witchy sort of metaphysical world.
I think my family was that way, but not as open as your family. Because my mother always kind of knew things, and it was just like a quiet thing. And then, yeah, you know, she'd know when we would be coming home, and know who would be on the phone, and she'd know, well, that's all bullshit. And she was usually right, you know, and things like that. But so even though like we didn't talk about it, it was kind of like this undercurrent, because now we talk about it and we see that my family seems to be more psychic than I realized growing up. I thought I was the only one. I'm like, you know, and I see that in this person, because it's a family member, but I won't say how this person's related to me. But I can see where he is getting confused with that psychic ability is confusing him, instead of separating it as, you know, well, it's part of reality, but it's not our everyday lives. And I can see where that has been difficult. So I'm going to come up with a question somehow here, but but do you think there was a specific trigger in your sister's life that like kind of blurred the lines, so to speak?
I get that question fairly often, and I don't know of one. I don't think there is one. I think she just had a predisposition in some way, because there were, you know, stories of my grandfather saying when she was little, telling my dad she wasn't right, which like he'd be like, not quite right with that one.
Yeah.
I never witnessed him saying that, but that's things my dad has relayed since. She was always known for being very dramatic, though. Like, oh, her name's Jennifer. Oh, you're so dramatic. And I'm using her real name, just first name in the book. all the other
Yeah.
names change, only because that's how I'm going to call her, and I don't want to like use a fake name and then say her real name, right?
Right, makes sense.
If you're like, oh, Jennifer, you're being so dramatic, like, so yeah. And it wasn't just acting. I think it was just her mental processes, her psychological processes, like things were more dramatic to her, and she was probably picking up some other things and not synthesizing or processing it as well as say a child could. And also there was no one guiding her through it.
Yeah.
I do think, though I consider myself a shaman, I think she's kind of on that path too.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, because I think we always talked about this before we started recording, that not everyone who has schizophrenia is someone in a spiritual crisis and is a shaman. Some are, others, you know, it's definitely a mental health issue or disorder. But I think because we are so much alike in some respects, that she was on that path, and she's someone who would have needed, let's say she grew up in like a Siberian tribe, right? And she was
right
behaviors, she would have been taken in by the shamans and guided on that path. You still had a choice to like follow it or reject it, but she probably would have been sent on that path, someone to help her to process and integrate what she was picking up at a young age. Because I think if it's not guided when needed at a young age, then you know that affects your biology, that affects your brain chemistry, right? So then it, you know, it becomes even more combination of those factors, those causes, and it's hard to I don't think you can totally unravel it if someone goes through childhood, puberty, young adulthood, without any guidance. And so she's 49 now, so she's, you know, quite far along with it. Yeah, interestingly, she's able to survive. She has like,
survival skills.
Her survival skills.
Yeah.
You know, in her crazy state. And yeah, is able to somehow, take care of herself, basically. You know?
So let me ask you this, more so for the listening audience, and, you know, if they happen to have somebody who is diagnosed as schizophrenic, how can they tell the difference between it being attached to being psychic and not being able to differentiate reality from non-reality? And how would they be able to tell if it was actually a mental issue?
They would have to get the person into therapy. And, you know, if you can find a therapist, I think, well, I don't know, find a therapist who, you know, is open to, you know,
the possibility of shame,
not just medicate and hospitalize, but you need to talk therapy, someone who can try to understand it. And ideally it has to be someone, you know, not family related, because, you know, they have their own emotional stuff and things going on. But a therapist to work with them to understand whatever their delusions are. But in many cases, because, you know, the common thing people think of with schizophrenics is hallucinations, often that has to get under control for the person to even go through therapy. So some form of medication is necessary to kind of calm that down so they can even sit and talk to somebody. So yeah, it's a case-by-case thing, but definitely getting some sort of psychological evaluation and into some sort of therapy, often at least in the beginning with medication, depending on the circumstances. But there's a lot of high functioning schizophrenics, which I think a lot of people don't realize. They're not all like super crazy, living on the streets like my sister. Those are usually the extreme cases. A lot of people are high functioning schizophrenia, and, you know, they take medication to work with the hallucinations. They know when they're going through a tough time and things to do, or they go to their therapy regularly. And there's like a YouTube channel, I think it's called Living with Schizophrenia, which is a very high functioning woman. I think she just had a child. So you can get an idea of like, oh, you'd look at her and listen to her talk and you would have no idea, right? So realize that it is a spectrum. Often it's called schizoaffective disorder spectrum. And that, yeah, some people are very high functioning and they go through stressful time in their lives and they have a break and they just need, intensive care then, and then support from family and regular therapy, and they can be functioning again. So it just depends on how bad it is. But yeah, not for families with someone who's, they're like, oh, something's wrong, and they haven't gone and gotten any sort of evaluation or psychological care, a therapist, that's really important to get that in, to understand like where, like what is going on, what's the extremity of it, what are they suffering with, like if they're having constant like auditory hallucinations and they can't focus on anything, you need to calm those down somehow so you can get them back into themselves and not on the voices they're constantly hearing. And then as that progresses, depending on how it goes, it can come off medication and learn to work with it better. And then some people, like what is very common with schizophrenics is sort of delusions of like religiosity, religious delusions is a very common delusion, of being a savior, wanting to save the world, wanting to save someone. I would guess not all those people are someone who's really in a spiritual crisis, but it's an archetypal thing. And I've read some great books on, what is his name? Weir Perry. He looks into the archetypal patterns of I forget, I can't remember the term now, but like where it's like someone wants to be the savior, or he really focused on the king archetype, and his case studies, like, yeah, they wanted to be the king and save the world, more in like a medieval sense. Or prior to that even. So working with that is an archetypal thing within someone within themselves, right? Because we all have archetypes within us that we express or work through our subconscious, right? And those are acting out and they have no idea. And it's like, oh, I'm to save the world, I'm to, save society or this and that. Or is it they're going through a spiritual crisis and they are some sort of healer or shaman, and they can contribute to the world. And I remember in one of the books I've read, and I can't remember the details now, but like there's a couple examples of famous people who really brought some change in the societies they lived in other countries. So I can't remember them.
Right.
And then, but their mental health got the best of them, and they like died young or something. But they instigated some change that helped the society in the long term, even though they were like untreated, more considered untreated schizophrenics. So yeah, to answer your question, that went off like tangents here, is yeah, if people have a family member who's struggling, like get a diagnosis, get into therapy at least. Or again, if it's really extreme and there's hallucinations that are disrupt, like some people have visual hallucinations of like people jumping in front of cars. I mean, that's like traumatic.
Yeah.
Like you can't, you're like, like they need to, like, the only thing that calms it down is medication. And then once that's calmed down, at least to some degree, then they can like start talking to a therapist and working with whatever tools they can to help, depending on all the things that can be going on. Yeah, it's a very complicated disorder. Disease isn't the right word. Yeah.
Wow, you've really delved into the research. When did you realize that your sister was schizophrenic, and when did you start diving in, like, how can I figure this out? Because you needed to make some sense of it, obviously.
Right. Definitely when she was in her mid-20s. Well, by the time she was in her 20s, like I think we all knew, like the family, like she didn't quite have it all together. It wasn't that she was just lazy, or she seemed lazy and unmotivated. Like she went to City College, she still lived at home, but she wouldn't go to her classes and this, and she'd go out to clubs. And I think at that point, when I was still in high school, I was just like, oh, she's like, thinks being in clubs has to be the cool thing, blah, 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 teenager view of it. Like, so, because I had no interest in that. but then like, you know, I went off to college. She still lived at home. Or no, she didn't go to City College. She went to San Francisco State. I think she started working instead of going to school, or maybe school part-time. I don't know all the details because I wasn't living at home anymore. And it's just like weird stuff would happen. She'd lose her job, and there was some legal stuff I can't go into that happened. And, you know, and it's just things started to fall apart. And I mean, you could say like, yeah, she needs some help. She needs like a counselor. She needs a therapist. But it was definitely like mid-20s onward where like she would just say stuff and you're just like, what, you know, it was just
Where'd
like,
that come from?
delusional.
Yeah.
There's a problem here. There's this and that. So I really wanted to understand what was going on about 10 years ago, because I actually thought the idea of writing this book, I got 10 years ago. And it was just basically going to be about my sister. It's like it's evolved over the years. I've done lots of different stuff in between. It sort of gets on pause, and I realized like it wasn't the right time, because I needed to understand her more, and I needed to understand me more, and me and my relationship to her, which has taken some time because there's all the rest of life. It wasn't
right.
doing right. And it came about like I would get these random emails from her. I don't know, once a year, once every 2 years. Totally crazy. I have them all still. I have them printed up. It's like sort of like my research, right? It's like I have stuff from her mouth, so to speak, as well as like some conversations. But I lived in Seattle at the time, so I had these emails, and I was like, oh, well, that's where I was like, oh, well, that's kind of like our play in childhood, or the story my dad would tell. And you know how family elaborates stories of your ancestors. Like to her, they were real, and then it went off the deep end in her mind, right? So yeah, it just would accumulate, and I'd want to like understand what is going on. Why is she saying this? And I have one email where there is that sort of like strong religious delusion where she's outcast. She's trying to be there to save the world. And, you know, there's other ones where she wants to save the city and she thinks San Francisco is as big as Europe. And then there's her delusions of, you know, it's often delusions of grandeur, right? I'm the savior, I'm the king, or whatever. She thinks we're related to the royalty of, I don't know, all countries of the world.
Oh, wow.
Like, I remember one time, so I lived in San Francisco. I had moved back 2012, and then I moved here in 2015, so about 3 years. And so then I had some one-on-one interaction with her. And it was something like, well, she'd write letters. She'd come up, show up at the house in the middle of the night. I wouldn't answer the door because it could be a big
deal.
Yeah. But she would like write letters on pieces of paper she had and like try to stuff it under the door. And so I would like read them, and you know, it's like she's like, oh, we have to do this and this and this because she's supposed to get Persia and I'm supposed to get Prussia, because Prussia doesn't exist anymore. And that do with family, because my great grandfather in Denmark fought in the Prussian War. That's the only, like, that's the connection where it's like in our mind, and we were not royalty. It's like nothing like that. And so it's just like, wow, this is fascinating. So it's just built over the years. But 10 years ago, to answer the question, tangents keep going off. Yeah, was when I decided, oh, maybe I'll write a book about this. That would be really interesting. People would be fascinated. And then at the time, I thought, oh, I'll just write up her emails, but you can't do that because that's like, it's copywritten. If someone writes an email, you can't publish it.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. But I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of experiences, but it's not just that. It's my interpretation of what I understand it as, and also how I understand myself. And then I might also include an analysis of her astrology. I'm on the fence with that, and I thought maybe I'll do a Vedic one and a Western one. I just have to be very clear that these things, you know, if someone has this in their chart, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have mental illness, right? So there has to be
right.
It's a combination of factors. So yeah, I'll probably include one of them. I haven't decided which is most interesting. So,
What's her astrological sign?
in Western astrology, she's a Cancer. Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
in Vedic,
And so in Vedic, her sun sign is Leo, but her ascendant, because Vedic I would go by the ascendant, is Taurus.
yep. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
June 30th.
Okay. I'm kind of blown away because my daughter thinks she has schizophrenia. She's a Cancer,
Uh-huh.
and the sun sign and stuff, it's like almost identical to hers. So this is like really freaking blowing me away.
Pause and just say to people out there, if you're a Cancer, it doesn't mean you have mental illness.
No, but the one thing about cancers are very emotional. They're very sensitive.
Mhm.
My son always accused my daughter of being dramatic. Oh, she's just being dramatic.
Interesting.
You know, so this is kind of resonating with me.
How old is
And
your
also,
daughter?
she just turned 30.
Okay. So I would say
And
it's a good sign that she's saying, I think I'm schizophrenic. It's a good sign she may not be, or it's very mild. But I would say, you know, is she seeing someone? Like, is she getting help for it, or analysis at least?
no, she's not. And actually, the reason why she was thinking so, and it's a story for another day, was because of where she had worked. And since she quit working there, things that were happening and she was encountering are not happening anymore.
Oh, interesting.
But well, her thing was that she believed that the people she was working for were watching her, and there would be all this weird stuff happening. And she was like, you know, they're doing this, they're messing with me, and that's what was making her think. And she worked there for 3 years,
Right.
so that's what was
schizophrenia is a common happening, right? Where you're worried about, oh, they're watching me, they're out to get me, that kind of
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like she went through this for 3 years, but now that she's not working there, she doesn't talk about any of that stuff anymore.
I would say that's a good sign. She's probably okay, but you know, maybe, you know, if she's stressed about it, if you find out she's worried about it, or ask her if she's still feeling some of those things, even just talking to a therapist to process the time that she worked there could be beneficial. And then if there is something more, the therapist would pick up on it.
Well, the other thing too is that I know in Western astrology, Cancers are said to be very psychic.
Yeah, the water signs, not that other signs can't, because water is emotion and intuition. They tend to be more in tune with their intuitive and psychic abilities. And then it also depends on the placement of her moon, because the moon rules Cancer. So her sun's in Cancer and the moon rules it. So where's the moon and what's aspecting the moon, or what's aspecting the sun? There's a whole analysis. But yeah, the water signs tend to be more in tune with all of that. And especially Cancers tend to be highly empathic.
Yes.
And so not being able to differentiate their emotions and other people's emotions. So it's possible, you know, the people at her work were watching her. It's also possible she was picking up someone else being watched at work. And
wow, that's interesting. No, because there were things
on it, right? Because the water reflects, and the moon is like emotions can go up and down because the moon's her ruler. Yeah.
But there were things that they were saying to her, like things that she had listened to, conversations she had, that they would do it underhandedly though.
Mm.
You know, they would mention the color of her underwear.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'd be worried about that. You know, she was probably right. Probably we're watching her in some way, or yeah.
But it was crazy because we couldn't figure out why. And then we started, you know, wondering if it wasn't because of the fact that she does have psychic abilities, and she's very much of an empath. She doesn't so much take on people's emotions though, but she can tell what people are thinking. And she gets overwhelmed with being in crowds sometimes because it's just too much chatter for her.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that. So when people pick up on what people are thinking, it's because they're picking up on the emotions attached to the thoughts. And those emotions translate as thoughts.
That
So
makes sense.
even though she thinks she doesn't pick up on emotions, she's probably picking up on it so much that she's not aware that she does it. Like there's no filter. And that no filter for people who are very empathic, or even if they want to call themselves mind readers, can be quite disturbing. And if the filter isn't put up, it can make you kind of go crazy. Like, why am I feeling this? What is I'm sensing that, it can contribute to that. And so she needs to develop some sort of energetic filter or practices to help her filter, whether she wants to think of it as their thoughts or their emotions. And I would say both, so that she can retain her sanity.
And it's something it takes, and it's something, my experience, it takes time, because that's what I identified myself at first as, somebody empathic, before I realized I was really more psychic. And so it takes time to learn about that. Like Juliann said, we don't, in our culture, we don't usually have anybody that's guiding us with these, realizing that this type of reality exists within our reality, and that it's more normal than it is not. And so we have nobody navigating us on that, unless we come from like an indigenous culture or something. And so it takes time to figure out, oh, I'm empathic, I'm picking up somebody else's, this is not coming from my core, this is coming. And then you got to learn to process and like learn to put on that filter or that wall, so that you're not being bombarded by everybody's. And then there's the balance of, you don't want to totally shut off either, because that can make you ill too. So there's a balance that you have to learn to walk. And that takes time. 30 is really young, in my experience. It's my experience.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
and to really know, what's really going on, because you don't have anybody teaching you or showing you the way. We don't have the indigenous culture leading us like we should be led through that.
Right.
Yeah. So
and not only that, but our society puts a stigma on it.
Exactly. Exactly. A lot of, I would say, what they call, or what's the name? There's mental illness, and they put it on almost anybody that I think is empathic. And it's really so adjustment disorder. So social adjustments disorder. And I think that is put on people when they're just really empathic and they're trying to navigate. And it's, so it's, I know I'm going off here too on my own little tangent, but it's just like, in my experience, it's really difficult. I think we need to be there for the youth to let them know that experiencing things are more normal than not. And I would say, and I'm going to, based on my personal experience, I think all of us have a little tiny bit of schizophrenia in us. And it just depends on the degree of how traumatized we've been, what our genetic makeup is, and whether we can figure out what's going on, that those voices in our head can be spiritual. And it's a spiritual path more than it is anything else.
Yeah. Or I would say we all have a little bit of crazy. I'm okay
with that
crazy.
too.
We all have a little bit of crazy, but there is a fine line between psychic and psycho, right? And I think that some people get caught in that line, right? If I can, like, this is the line, and like the space is the line, and it's like, and like sometimes it goes this way and sometimes it goes that way, because that's where you need the filter, right? Some sort of filter. And you brought up a good point. You can't just cut it off. Like, often I'll tell clients, don't just put up a steel wall, because you block everything. If you're someone who is sensitive, psychic, empathic, you need to be able to pick stuff up because it's your natural nature. But you don't need to pick up everything all the time. And so I often recommend, and you can tell your daughter this, and it's great she has you there, you're open and supportive of her and anything she might be developing, because 30, she's developing. She's a kind of a baby still, right? Is to imagine either like cheesecloth around you, or sometimes I'll say like window screen material. So something that lets stuff in, but there's stuff to block what you don't want. So she can imagine like, I don't know, a ball or bell of cheesecloth around her. So she can say, oh, let me see if I can sense what those people are. Let's say she goes to the grocery store. Let me see if I can sense the mood of the cashier today. And if she's like, oh, she's grumpy, she can just tighten the weave on her cheesecloth, go about her business, right?
Go to another cashier.
I'm sorry, what?
Go to another cashier.
Go to another cashier, or just smile and be nice. But if she's in that phase of trying to figure herself out, she may not be in a position to like smile and give healing right in that moment, right? So, you know, it depends on her mood that day too. But like, have something that is permeable, right? Some sort of shield that's permeable, but protective at the same time. Because that's putting a steel wall off and shutting off everything can make someone who is psychic, empathic, kind of go crazy in a different way. Like they're too much with their own thoughts too quickly. And that needs to be an adjustment as well. Yeah. So it's like, I don't think she's ready to like go off into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights by herself on a vision quest. She still needs to learn what is her and what is not her.
No, and she's, you know, as far as she's concerned, she has no real spiritual beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's still kind of searching. You know, she does believe in the universe and what the universe can do. Mm-hmm. But like when I tell her that I'm sending angels to her, she's like, okay, Mom, you know, I don't believe that, but go ahead.
Yeah. She doesn't have to have any set spiritual belief. It could really be just understanding herself and emotions, or emotional relationships, or how people relate emotionally. Like it doesn't have to have any religious or spiritual path or attachment or labels to it at all. Because I see, so psychology, the psyche, psycho, that means soul. That is our way of understanding the soul level of things. And some people need to keep it very, you know, scientific for their brains, right? Some people need to keep it very emotionally lovey-dovey, whatever, you know, everyone's going to be different. So some people don't need the spiritual path stuff is like, whatever, you know? So she can look at it as just understanding emotional dynamics, or just understanding herself, basically.
Right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, it's all about the journey. Yeah. And you know, and I think sometimes the more we put labels, the more we limit ourselves.
Yeah. And if something resonates with her later on, she'll find that path, you know. But she may
and
sorry, go ahead.
And for me, it's like, you know, whatever, you know, I love her. I support her. Whatever her beliefs are, those are her beliefs. You know, I raised my kids to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? To think their own thoughts, you know, so it's like she has a mind of her own. Let her think and feel what she wants to feel. And she respects me and I respect her, and we have a great relationship.
Awesome.
Thank you for that, Joyce. That's beautiful. So this book, it sounds amazing. So you hoping to get it out? Do you have a projected date?
I'm giving myself a deadline, because every time I do that, like something happens, and then I've just, you know, life happens and I can't get it done. You know, it's not something I can, like, writing is not something I can multitask and like have my toddler playing in the background and talking to, you know, it's like I need like, okay, quiet time. So, you know, I can think about it and do other things, but the actual typing, like, I think it's just because I have some perfectionist there when I'm writing. Like, I need my space and quiet, no one disrupting me, and everything done. Like, I have to have like the daily chores done before I can sit down and write. Like, it's a picky thing, I know.
But you also have quite a body of work already that you've done on astrology.
Yeah. And I will have an expansion pack for my Vedic astrology decks.
Oh,
I'm waiting on
nice.
the proof copy, the proofs, and they should be fine. So once I get them and I look over and
Yeah.
there's no like big oops, I'm okay with a single typo. Like I like that sort of like the imperfectness if there's one typo.
Right.
I
I
be like,
teach it.
okay, no, but like
Yeah.
make sure there's not an factual mistake, you know, or I didn't spell my name wrong or something. Always a fear. I'm like, oh, did I spell my name wrong? I've never done that, but it's like, oh, okay, there's some obvious thing. Hopefully that'll be out soon, but there's like delays because of shutdowns in places and stuff.
Right, right.
So that's the next thing that's coming out. But yeah, I've written other things. And I have my second book I've started.
Oh my.
I guess I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Actively, is a book about the house I grew up in and the paranormal stuff.
Oh,
Nice.
And it's kind of about my family. But the writing always evolves as I'm working on it. So I don't know what tangents that's going to go off on right now. And it actually started out kind of as a memoir, and it sort of is, but not. So hard to describe. But it does, it's really about, like, the subject matter is the house. Like the Schizophrenia book, the subject matter is my sister, but there's much more to it.
So the house is telling the story. Yeah, go ahead, Joyce.
I just have one quick question. Are there pictures of the house? Because I want to see the house.
Yeah.
Well, her father still lives there, so she doesn't want to really give that out too much.
But I mean incorporated in the book.
There will probably be.
It's one of those San Francisco, what they call the Pink Ladies or something like that.
Not
it's one
Pink
of the
Lady. It's technically an Edwardian, but we just call it a Victorian. An Edwardian Victorian, built in 1904. My family always said,
I love that architecture,
but I looked it up and it was 1904. Maybe they started building it in 1902. With 2 flats, and like I have pictures of, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a picture in the book. I haven't gotten to the design point of it yet.
Right.
Or at least a sketch of it. Because I don't want to give away what house it is, right?
Right.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. So yeah, it's not like a scary looking house at all.
No, I love Victorian houses.
Oh yeah. Well, the inside has changed so much. It's gone through several remodels. And so like I don't have pictures of what it looked like growing up as a child, which is what I would want to include.
Oh, wow.
Unless I can find some stashed away somewhere, but yeah.
So if people want to see the tarot decks and oracle decks in your other books, can they go to your website, or is there someplace else they need to go?
They can go to my website, juliannvictoria.com, and click the decks and books link at the top, and all the pictures are there. You click on the picture to where you can order it. I can show you them now if you like.
Sure, because some of this will be on video. And
sorry, this ain't fair. I can't see them.
Oh, well, we'll just describe them.
So, Shedding Light on Jyotisha. Vedic Astrology for Beginners is, I guess, second edition. Second edition is my most recent completed book. The first edition, I think it came out in 2014 or 15.
Yeah, and that's like a beginner's guide to Vedic astrology. Because I've read it, so I wanted to say it. So it's really good if you're new to Vedic astrology and want to understand it.
Oh, and I just started an astrology studies series on my YouTube channel.
Oh, good.
Videos up, but it's both Western and Vedic. It's like, I've only done the signs of the zodiac. So some videos are going to be in one video because like it's mostly the same stuff. But as we move along, there'll be some separate ones. And I do have a couple online courses, shedding light on your karma and dharma, and journey through the nakshatras. Those are on that same decks and books courses page on my website. And all courses are half off right now, well, till the end of the year, because I'm going to move away from Teachable. So go to the last video on my channel and get the link and everything there.
Yeah.
The coupon code. But anyway, I have 2 Vedic astrology decks. One is an oracle and one's a study deck. They're not exactly the same because one's a study deck. It has more information on the card, so it's for study. And so the expansion pack I made would go with either of these.
Oh, okay.
So the expansion pack is only 7 cards. So I did the gunas and the purusharthas, which are the 4 motivations for people who want to start incorporating that. So I thought, I decided not to put that in the originals because it can complicate things for who are new to Vedic astrology or just in general. But then I thought, well, an expansion pack, if people want to add those in, and it would fit in the same boxes. So I have that. Tarot decks, I have the Scrying Poetry Tarot.
Yeah, I like that. So beautiful.
There's a mini version, which it comes out and I made it big because it's writing, it's poetry. Yeah. And I thought, oh, if it's smaller, you won't be able to read it, but this one is great. You can read it just fine. Yep. I have my Medieval Sigils Tarot, which is all sigils.
Which I find fascinating, and I haven't got that deck yet, but I should. It's been on my wish list for a long time. Shame on me.
No, don't worry about it. So it's all sigils. It's very people are like, is it tarot? It's very tarot. It's just sigils. So for people who really want to work intuitively and work with sigil images, get my deck. Yep. And then I have Children's Tarot, which is major arcana only. So you can see one on the cards here. Yep. For kids, it's plastic case, plastic cards, so they can spill their milk on it.
And it's very kid friendly for those and maybe just listening. It's very cute. It has kids on it.
Yeah, so
very simplistic. Yeah, very simplistic.
A coloring book and guidebook that goes with it.
Yeah,
it's.
So it looks like kids playing for those of you on the podcast. It looks like
kids.
Yeah, kids having fun and playing, but it's a major arcana.
And there's a coloring book and guidebook, and then there's a coloring book only for like really little kids who aren't reading yet. If you want to give them a coloring book to play with.
Right.
I got a lot
Which I think is good for adults too. If you're just learning tarot, this gives you a good foundation. It makes it very simplistic.
It's a fun deck, and like, coloring books are popular now. And then I have my Oracle of the Fool, and the guidebook is a journaling exercise book. I'm all into journaling. I have my Fine Lines deck, which I think is my most popular deck.
Yeah.
And the workbook, it's a workbook traversing the fine lines with prompts and,
Yep. So that's that's the one with the 2 different words, right? That are similar.
Yeah. So it's like inner work, definitely could categorize.
Yeah, love vs fear.
Yeah.
Discernment vs judgment.
Yeah.
Inspiration vs impulse.
Yeah. So that's definitely been my most popular deck. Because people want to do shadow work, inner work, explore issues within themselves. Like, how do I work with that? And then there's more. My older books, like my first journal I created was Butterfly Journal, and that's 12 monthly contemplations. So, and they all build upon each other. And then for those looking for a stocking stuffer this holiday season, the March of the Toy Maker, the Fairy Tale Quest. It's very cute. I mean, it's middle grade, so it's like kid and adult. And it's actually based on a story my dad originally wrote, condensed down, and
nice.
yeah, a lot of stuff taken out because he wrote it on 8.5 by 11 paper, and it was like this thick. I was like, I gotta make that a readable book. And then some older stuff I have out there is a poetry book, a book by my rescue dog. He passed away in December.
Yeah.
And then my old cat, she's gone now too, wrote a book, Daily Yoga for a Happy and Healthy Cat. Popular. I used to sell it in a coffee shop in San Francisco. It was quite popular.
I could see where in San Francisco that would
humans can learn from her wisdom too.
I bet.
So that is like, yeah. When I pulled everything out, I'm always like, oh, it's a lot of stuff. And I was like, I should use my things, my creations. I'm not very good at marketing and self-promotion. And I'm like, I need to just use my own stuff more on like my platforms because
yeah.
I'm like,
I think your work is amazing, and you have a lot of thought that's gone into it. And
I think about it. I probably spend like a year or years thinking about things before I actually make them. Like the expansion pack, the deck came out a year and a half ago, and it's been a thought. And then like all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make that now. Jackson agrees.
Yes, he does. He's in. My puppy has to put his 2 cents in sometimes.
Thanks, Jackson.
Oh, talking about toys, he's got to get his toy. There's a toy up there, and he's like, I was telling, I don't care if it goes in the podcast, but I was telling Julie that he's not really into toys like he used to be. Well, apparently he was listening because he had to come get a toy.
Of course. Yeah. They're always listening.
Yes, and we never know what our animals are going to do. No. But I enjoyed this time with you, Julie. This was really, and I find that very fascinating because I could see a lot of myself in what you were talking about with schizophrenia. No, do I think I am? No, but I'm psychic, I'm empath, and you go through periods where what's really going on, and then like Joyce's daughter, you have to find your way somehow and figure it out.
Am I crazy? Like what?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
Yeah. You kind of know you're not, but you know there's something going on that nobody's explained to you or told you that is normal. And I'm really hoping this podcast help people find the help they need, because there's no shame in talking with somebody. There are some great therapists out there that will really sit down and listen. There's life coaches if you don't want to go that route. There's all kinds of help available, or just somebody that will listen to you, just hear you, if nothing else.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. So
well, the thing too about the topic is that nobody else is talking about this, about that connection with the paranormal world. And
it's hard to find because I've various times I'm like scoured the internet, and you find a little bit here and a little bit there, and it's hard to
but it's shedding some new light that people could go, oh wait, this makes sense because of this and because of that. So thank you, Julie, so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. I appreciate it.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Julie. And your YouTube is through the Peacock Eyes?
My YouTube is Juliann Victoria.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It used to be through the Peacock's Eyes, and then I was like,
okay, that's why I thought.
Yeah. And so just JuliannVictoria.com. Everything, social media is linked there at the bottom on the front page, and you can find everything's there if you're curious where to find me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, everyone. I hope you listened all the way through, because it was really this was a gem for sure. And so get out there, enjoy the wild, and remember to breathe.
Bye,
And keep on shining.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, stop recording, Heidi.